Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We seem to be suffering from some slight technical difficulties, but such is the way when we discuss matters of national importance, which are a little controversial. In the final round, I'd like to start off with Mr. Manjula Gajanayaka, National Coordinator, Centre for Monitoring Election Violence. Mr. Gajanayaka, now earlier on, it was discussed that parliamentary procedures have been bastardized. This was a phrase that was used by Dr. Gamage. How do we move forward from this? I mean, we have the necessary framework, the regulations, the standing orders in Parliament. We have a good system of checks and balances. We have the legislature, the executive, the judiciary. This is a functioning democracy. That's what it's supposed to be. But still we face these issues, such as with the hasty passing of the Provincial Council Election Amendment Act. Where are we going wrong, and what can we do to rectify it? You have 3 minutes to answer that question.
Okay, actually, I can start with this. I mean, we all know that this government is governing the country under the concept of Yahapalana concept. You know, there are main 8 or 9 principles under the Yahapalana concept. I mean, people participation is there, rule of law there, democracy participation, everything is there. If they are respecting good governance principles itself, actually they can govern the country. But the main failure is actually they almost ignored all concept, all principles of good governance. That's the main thing. You know, the basic rights of any citizen, that is the voting rights. You can't deny it. It is sovereignty is with on people. That's the thing. That the in current situation is that only the government is not making any genuine effort to hold elections at in the real situation, as well as all other operators. I mean, election commission, political parties, many political parties and civil society organizations are requesting elections, but the government is denying. This is the first time in the history I saw in my lifetime that main opposition parties and government ruling party is working together to postpone the elections. This is first time we saw in our lifetime actually. Ruling party and the main opposition party is trying to postpone the elections, working together. Then what we can do? You know that jeopardize parliamentary procedures and everything is there. That actually government should look behind. I mean, look back. I mean that where they started, that they can deliver everything according to the Yahapalana concept. But at least our as civil society organizations and election monitoring missions, our main request is don't do anything. In this point, government should hold the elections. It is our request. If when government is postponing election, actually frustration of people is increasing. That's the main point. That you know that 1971, what happened in 1971 in the history, what happened in 1988, not only that, even northern struggle. You know, since 1980, actually struggle started in the north. Everything happened frustration of youth. The real situation is, the real problem is because not having any elections. If we can't deliver, if we can't hold elections on time, actually frustration is increasing. Then what government can do, that holding the elections on timely manner without using any tactic to postpone the elections.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Manjula Gajanayaka, for your final thoughts. Mr. Kesaralal Gunasekara, my next question is to you. Sovereignty rests in the people. What is the role of the opposition in ensuring that in the event a government delays elections, the opposition makes sure that it acts as a set of checks and balances in ensuring that there is no foul play. What is the role of the opposition?
Well, the role of the opposition is to keep the government on check.
Is that happening at the present juncture?
Fundamentally, it's difficult to answer because you have a situation where both main parties are together in governance, and as such, as to whether you have a stronger party in the opposition is an issue. As to how one would describe that is not that easy. But people in governance needs to understand that they have to do the correct thing. They have to understand that they need to do the correct thing. If they are doing something wrong, that is not what is expected. And that is certainly not what is expected of Yahapalana administration. In fairness to Yahapalana, I must say that they have done so many good things. So many good things. But this election process has been a stumbling block. As to why, I do not know. There may be reasons, I don't know. But even if you go through this election process, the final result announcement is going to be even difficult. As it is, I find it so difficult to understand how it's going to work. As to how the election commission is going to work that out, it's very difficult. That's why I say that the way things are, it's not that easy to go ahead with the election. People might cry and say, look, we need elections. But as to whether it can be held, it's very dicey.
Mr. Gunasekara, what is your message to the opposition? Sri Lanka has to have a robust opposition. So if it doesn't, what is your message to members of the opposition who may be watching us from home?
It's not only the opposition. It's the role of the parliament as well, members in governance as well. Just because you don't have a proper opposition does not mean that you can do anything and get away. No, you're supposed to do the correct thing.
So are you saying that the parliamentarians in parliament at present are not qualitative enough or not intelligent enough to do the right thing?
That has been there for the last 10-15 years. Only thing is, parliament has still not realized that they themselves are unable to perform the role it is expected of to perform. And hence, you must get assistance from outside in the form of experts and professionals. But that is what Parliament is not doing. This is where we are faltering, If you get experts into the system, if you get professionals into the system, they will advise you as to how things should be worked out.
So and that is not happening. We need professionals, we need intellectuals in our system of governance. That's what you're saying. And we lack that at present.
We lack that.
All right, thank you very much.
In a serious way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kesaralal Gunasekara, for your thoughts. I now move my attention to Dr. Sujatha Gamage, who's a policy analyst at Learn Asia. Dr. Gamage, when we take Sri Lankan women, we find that the majority or a significant amount of women, quantum of women, are rather subservient in nature and afraid and manipulated. You may disagree. How does this new act try to bring in women? If you could clarify to the women watching us from home, thinking, well, maybe politics should be a career choice for me. Can you just clarify to our viewers watching us from home on this exact system?
Of women's quotas?
That's right.
Yeah, I think local government is a place to start with women's quotas. Quotas are by nature undemocratic, but there are situations when you have to introduce them. Women are excelling in all other fields, but as somebody said, if politics were a place where you could write the exam and get in, women would get in. But politics is difficult. I think it's a noble profession. I think if we blame politicians, it's because they reflect society. I think for women, I think it's a good second career, good for young women. Just throw your hat in at the local level. And you have the opportunity now. There's a that's the only way to do this, and particularly for young middle class women. You know, you think that politics is, what you find is in politics you have these leaders who come from political families, and then you have a whole bunch of followers who are actually doing politics just as dependents of those. But we need to change that. We need the middle classes getting involved, and I think the local government is a good opportunity. Throw your hat in at your local level. Even if you're not contesting, just, you know, join a political party if you have any leanings, and try to influence at the local level what candidates they're putting in.
Dr.
That's the only way to go about it.
You've done research and you've studied closely other jurisdictions as well. So could you give us some examples of other jurisdictions where whereby women have been encouraged into politics, and how the systems have succeeded by having women's quotas?
Actually, I have not focused on women's issues, because that's something I think I've always said. I focus on larger issues, and women's issues is only one thing. But you know, but the question is addressed to me. But I think I should ask the gentleman. Actually, they might be better. But let me tell you, I think in South Africa, its concept is the party is within the parties that they decide the policies, because of the freedom struggle. There were a lot of women involved. That history is there. But in India, I think the best way to get women in is through the list. There's no question. And in Pakistan, they have a list. They have a women's list. And some women have moved on to become real candidates. And I think another way is to have women-only seats, which is as in panchayats in India. But I think this system we are introducing here, by trial and error, by this crazy method, I find it very interesting that the final council shall be 25% women. And I think it's got, you know, it will be difficult to enact. I can see one phrase that should be removed. There has to be some amendments, but I think it's possible. And I think it's an interesting way, and I think I'm glad we're starting at local council level. Let's try at the local council level. I think this is the first time I've seen that happening anywhere, where you mandate the election commission that the final composition of the council shall be 25% women. I have not seen it anywhere. It's going to be very interesting. I've looked at this in detail. I think it's possible to do that. So it will be very interesting. I'm telling women, just throw your hat in, particularly middle class professional women, you know, and it should not be a full-time job. And
some of them need not contest. If your name is in the list, you get a chance of getting elected, nominated.
Not only elected, nominated. They can be chairman or vice chairman of the council, even nominated.
This is a good chance, ideal opportunity.
It's very practical.
All right, thank you very much. My final question is to Asoka Obesekara. He is the Executive Director of Transparency International Sri Lanka. Asoka, we had such a comprehensive discussion this evening. However, to take home for those watching us and policymakers who are also watching us, we spoke of the manner in which substantial changes were made to this one particular act, the Provincial Council Election Amendment Act, at committee stage, which is a complete violation of parliamentary procedure, inter alia. And we're also looking at parliamentarians, politicians making these changes where the public doesn't have any way of challenging it. How dangerous is this trend, and what do we need to do to stop this?
Yeah, I think it's of significant concern. And I think, you know, when we think about some of the changes that the good governance government, the Yapalna government, is supposed to have brought in. So I'll touch on an example. We no longer have the provision for urgent bills. So these sort of fast-tracked bills which get very, very little time to be challenged in the Supreme Court, literally with lawyers getting the bill and then within 2 hours sometimes needing to appear before the Supreme Court. Those sorts of things are out. And that's a very positive thing. However, that same Yapalna government is now, which has got rid of things like the urgent bills, are now just going and putting skeleton bills and fleshing them out in the committee stage. So, you know, when you see acts like this, underneath it all, you can see the spirit, right? And that is where the real concern is. Now, we can talk about the standing orders and the parliamentary procedure and Standing Order 57, which I was highlighting earlier. I mean, these, you know, who enforces these things? I mean, it's the Speaker of Parliament that has to really take the lead on that. So these are concerns. Touching on something that was just spoken about earlier, this idea of what the opposition must do. I think once again, looking at this Yapalana government, you know, everyone said national unity government, right? But actually the national unity government, what that does is, it takes all of these people who are actually opposed to one another, but in the name of unity, actually all the opposition is happening behind closed doors. Not within parliament where you're seeing people debating things and disagreeing. The main parties are behind closed doors having disagreements. So actually, this idea of is the country on an open government path? Arguably, some of the examples which I've just given highlight a few of the concerns. Now, we've seen other positive things like the Right to Information Act, the implementation of that, which has actually been quite successful. And, I mean, obviously there's a lot more to be done, but the trajectory is positive. But fundamentally, when it comes to some of the democratic credentials of this government, there are now slowly there are concerns which are rising. That said, the fact that there are people in civil society amongst and in the media and others who are freely criticizing without fear is also another positive. So I mean, there are lots of things to be balanced out here, but really when it comes to parliamentary practice amongst other things, there are important amendments to be made and important changes to be made, and sometimes it's not only about changing things, it's about enforcing what is in place at the moment.
All right, thank you very much to the panel for sharing their expert opinions. Asoka Obesekara, Executive Director, Transparency International, Sri Lanka. Thanks so much for being with us here tonight. Dr. Sujatha Gamage, Policy Analyst at Learn Asia. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Manjula Gajanayaka, National Coordinator, Centre for Monitoring Election Violence. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Mr. Kesaralal Gunasekara, former MP. Thank you for joining us. I'd also like to thank Naveem Majid and Faraz Shaukat Ali for enlivening the discussion here tonight at Stein Studios. We did face some technical difficulties. We apologize for that. So today we discussed the Provincial Council Amendment Act and the melodrama surrounding it, how parliamentary procedure was being flouted openly. Remember that elections belong to the people. It's their decision. If they decide to turn their back on the fire and burn their behinds, then they will just have to sit on their blisters. Abraham Lincoln said that. Keep that in mind. Good night.
Yeah.